Hello, and welcome to another episode of The Living Force. Today, I'll be talking about a fan theory idea that I came up with not too long ago based on the Clone Wars television series. And the question is, what if Fives had survived in the Clone Wars? Now, if you don't watch the Clone Wars in Season 6, this will be a spoiler. So if you have not seen the entire series of the Clone Wars, or you are not fully caught up with the Clone Wars series, please click away now, or if you do not care about spoilers, continue to listen. But if you do not watch any spoilers, watch my previous videos. But this is your advanced warning. If you do not know how the Clone Wars ends or anything about Season 6, please click away now. So you've had your warning. You should have clicked away by now. It's been 45 seconds. You should have clicked away. So what if Fives had survived in the Clone Wars? Now, this obviously makes us create kind of an alternate timeline, essentially, and this is just going to be my personal theory of what would have happened if he had survived and what impact that would have had on the rest of the Star Wars story. Now, to start this, we'd have to come up with a different theory of how Fives essentially died, but in this case, he would have to survive. So I would say instead of Commander Fox shooting Fives directly through the chest, he would have instead disarmed him by shooting his hand, causing him to drop the gun. Therefore, the other clones would have eventually circled him and arresting him. But Fives already made his case to Rex and Anakin that there was something wrong, that there was this big plan, and this would have caused, in the ultimate ending, for something to happen with the clone army. Now, this is just what I personally think what would happen. Feel free to disagree or agree with what I say in the comment section below. So, personally, I think that Fives would have been arrested, but he would have given Rex and Anakin enough evidence to make them want to pursue an investigation on all clones, and they would have found that Fives was right, that there was an inhibitor chip in all clones. So Fives was telling the truth, which means this would have caused Anakin to somewhat cause a little bit of tension between him and the Chancellor. And as we know, Anakin really trusts the Chancellor. So this Fives being right on the inhibitor chip would have made Anakin doubt the Chancellor somewhat, and in turn make him to doubt himself, maybe thinking he shouldn't have trusted the Chancellor, but maybe that was the only thing Fives was right about. So Anakin does have a big role as we go forward. Fives would have told the truth. Fives would have then been released from custody, and he would have actually been leading the investigation of clones that had the inhibitor chip. Now, this investigation would have been led by the Republic and so forth, and they would have found all clones had the inhibitor chip. These clones then would have went through a surgical procedure to have their inhibitor chip removed. Now, as we know, this was very risky, and even several clones died from this. Even Fives had his friend Tup die from a surgical procedure. So instead of going straight to a procedure, this would have clones would have been put in a holding facility where they would have had to wait and be put on essentially hold in the war, where they essentially would have been waiting for the time to have the procedure go through, as the success rate was not as high as they liked, while some clones were okay with having the procedure done without 100% success rate. Now, this would have obviously led to some clones dying, some clones surviving, and so on and so forth. But most of the clones we know and love would have waited till there was a better success rate. This would have in turn caused Palpatine to completely and drastically change his plan to have the clones execute Order 66. Now, obviously, Palpatine couldn't just initially order 66 as the investigation is going on, because that would be really suspicious, and then Fives would have been leading the investigation. At least in my opinion, Fives would have been maybe not leading the investigation, but one of the main leaders in the investigation, and he instantly would have looked at Palpatine. This would have caused all the clones and all the Jedi to instantly turn on the Chancellor, because Fives already had the evidence that the inhibitor chips were created by an outside force, that they were designed by an outside force at least, to have the clones one day turn on the Jedi or be used against the Jedi. So Fives would have gained the trust of the Republic and the Jedi Order after that first investigation went through to find all these inhibitor chips in all of the clones. Palpatine would have changed his plan drastically, and this is how it would have changed. Palpatine would have enlisted a camp for these clones to go to. Now, this is where it's going to get kind of like real life. I believe Palpatine would make a camp where he would hire bounty hunters to kill clones, similar to in Auschwitz for the Nazis and Jews. The clones would have been the Jews, and the bounty hunters would have been the Nazis killing the clones. Because now that Palpatine's plan had been ruined, he wanted to start over. Palpatine wanted to scratch the clones from existence. And this would have worked for a short amount of time, but eventually all the dead clone bodies would have racked up. And Palpatine didn't think that entirely through, as Palpatine didn't think through many of his plans, as we found out, such as Maul being killed by 2 Jedi, and Vader eventually turning against him. Palpatine really didn't think that through, so there's evidence to support that Palpatine didn't fully think his plans through all the time. And this would have been one of those instances. This would have led a full-on investigation into those so-called camps for the clones that Palpatine supported. This would have led to Palpatine's demise as a Senate leader. He would have been completely demoralized from the Senate and even kicked out of the Senate possibly for this. If not, he would have had to at least taken a step down from Supreme Chancellor. Now, this is where the theory gets a little bit even more crazy than what it already has been. So by now, most of the clones have had their inhibitor chips either removed or they're getting them planned to be removed. They've had the procedure done. They're waiting to get back on the front lines and fight this battle full force. Now, the rest of this theory is just my personal theory, and most of it has already been that. Now, the Republic would have been very upset with Chancellor Palpatine. This would have led to the Jedi Council, the Republic, and a lot of the entire galaxy itself being unhappy with him because he was in support of the clone army. Now he was killing members of the clone army because he wanted his plan to start over, because he wants to rise to power. But now that the discovery of the inhibitor chips has been made big, now he has to start over, and he can't just wipe out all the clones without doing something about it. This is where Anakin turns on the Chancellor and stays on the light side of the Force, because now that everything that's going on, Anakin isn't 100% sure if he can trust the Chancellor. This is where the Chancellor has to make Anakin believe him, and he has to make Anakin join his side now. But Anakin's not sure if he wants to join. And now we're getting to the part of my theory where it leads up to Revenge of the Sith. Now, in Revenge of the Sith, Anakin has his visions. And this would have been the biggest push for Palpatine at that time. Palpatine's pushing Anakin to join the dark side, but Anakin's not quite sure who he can trust. So Anakin instead tells the Council that he had an affair with Padme, and that Padme is pregnant, and he is afraid that she might die in childbirth. Now, this could mean Anakin could be expelled, but because of Anakin's honesty, he wasn't expelled from the Council. Instead, he was put on a leave where he was essentially left the Council for a period of time, but the Council would listen to Anakin's wishes and protect Padme, and she would be always within range of being protected, and Anakin would not be able to see Padme as much, but Anakin would find ways to see Padme, as Anakin was the father. All throughout Revenge of the Sith, Palpatine's rise to power would not have happened. Anakin joining the dark side, personally, I feel like would not have happened. So this has just been my theory. I feel like Fives would have gained the trust of the Republic after they found all the inhibitor chips in all of the clones. Palpatine would have made some very drastic mistakes, because during the Clone Wars was really a big turning point for Palpatine gaining his power. And I feel like Palpatine, because he was so quick thinking, he would have made an error in judgment in trying to kill all the clones. Now, I'm not going to say specific names of who I think would live and who would die, but if I had to say, personally, I feel like Cody, Rex and Fives would probably all live. Along with them, probably some more of the other big name clones, such as Wolf, who already did survive, as we know, but the Stormtroopers would never have been created. Darth Vader probably would never have been around, and the Emperor's rise to power would not have been around if Fives had survived. But that also implies that he would have been shot in the hands, not the chest, because I feel like a shot to the chest is kind of a fatal shot. But again, I could be wrong. Anyway, guys, I hope you enjoyed this video. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and most importantly, share with others. My goal for the end of October is to have 10 subscribers. That's right. As many fingers and toes as you have, that's how many subscribers I want by the end of October, and I can only do so much. You guys can do that much better than I can, so if you go ahead, hit that share button, share with people who are interested in Star Wars, who don't really know that much about Star Wars, or are just avid fans. I believe I try to be as good as a Star Wars place for most people to go to. And I try to get some people with the basics of Star Wars as much as I can. Anyway, guys, don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe. And remember, the Force is with you always.